you would have the financial directors and managing directors of businesses saying, cloud first, everything's cloud first, it's all cloud first, we're all going cloud first. And in reality, at this point, the cloud wasn't even proven.
No one is managing their own email anymore. That's a kind of a forgotten art.
Is that not the same with everything? No one's managing their own CRM anymore. No one's managing their own, payroll systems anymore. They're all online.
Now with everything what is happening in America, you see that also customers are thinking, okay, do we really want to have everything in Microsoft 365 stored?
The political whims of someone in charge in the US might change how Microsoft do their business without Microsoft actually being involved in that decision at all.
It should be a good wake-up call that we are relying too much on Microsoft or different American suppliers, that we need to make sure that is that the good thing to do, is that the smart thing to do.
Being aware of how to create infrastructure that is running in a local environment is getting less and less. We see a lot of young applicants, they only know cloud.
If we lose that kind of technical chops, technical ability, because we have abstracted everything away, we've lost something.
Thank you for joining in with this podcast. Today, we're lucky enough to be joined by our friend Kevin Jansen. Kevin, please tell everybody who's listening what you do for a living.
So what I do for a living?
As little as possible, is the answer.
Exactly. But, yeah. So I'm working in ProAct as well, of course, and I have a lot of knowledge around the Microsoft stack. Quite familiar with Azure, Microsoft 365, journeys to the cloud, and that kind of things.
Yep.
And so, looking
quite
forward
familiar
to this.
is probably underselling yourself a fraction there, I think. A man who's had his head in the clouds for the last 15 years, but in a good way.
Yeah.
So, I would guess. Right, okay. So what we thought we'd talk about this time is something that I suppose, from a market perspective, it's probably different around Europe, and this is quite an interesting subject. But has the cloud hit like a steady state, whereby those people that are going to the cloud have gone, those people that don't want to be in the cloud have come back, or are we still in this such situation whereby people are pushing themselves towards the cloud and having cloud first strategies and things of that nature? So Kevin, your thoughts?
Well, I think it's changing each day, because I think at the beginning of cloud, everybody thought, okay, let's move everything to the cloud, to the public cloud. I don't think that was the best solution for customers, and I think that's also what we have seen, because eventually, if you move everything lift and shift to the public cloud, it is way more expensive than just have it on an on-premise situation. So I think everybody is still using the public cloud and want to have a cloud-first strategy, but then a realistic cloud-first strategy, that you need to use the cloud where it is meant for, and not try to move everything to a cloud. So I think most of our customers are using a hybrid cloud situation, where they still have a lot of things on premise, maybe somewhere in the private cloud, but also in the public cloud.
Yeah, and I think that's fair, isn't it? I think certainly I remember the days, and so do you, Christian Moan, because you're nearly as old as I am, just not quite as old. But the point being that there was this whole thing back 20 years ago. It literally was 20 years ago when EC2 and what have you was released in S3, whereby you would have the financial directors and managing directors of businesses saying, cloud first, everything's cloud first, it's all cloud first, we're all going cloud first. And in reality, at this point, the cloud wasn't even proven, but it was like a wave that everybody followed. But it has been some time since I've heard somebody say, oh yes, we've got a cloud first strategy. But I would wager it still was 5 years ago when I last heard that. So, Christians, what do you still hear this?
Definitely.
You do still hear it?
Yes. But we're in Germany. Come on. We are a little bit slow with all things technical.
What? Not in my experience.
But I think the important part is to really tell the customer what that means. And that is what Kevin said before. It's not that lift and shift approach. That doesn't make any sense. But what it makes sense for the cloud is when you have things that scale, when you have applications and workloads that can be, I don't want to say microservice, but it can be somehow sliced up to the relevant parts where it makes sense. Also there, not everything has to be Kubernetes in the cloud, but
Containers,
sense,
you've got to say containers. It's just a thing.
I said basically, but I wanted to make it a little bit more specific.
Okay.
No, the thing is, it has to make sense, and then there's still a way for cloud first. And I think it switched a little bit from that infrastructure perspective to more the usage and user perspective, like we talked in the last episode with Modern Workplace and authentication in the cloud, stuff like that, where more the usage is in the cloud and not specifically and 100% everything of the infrastructure.
I'm seeing the same here as well. I mean, I guess most of our customers here are in some sort of hybrid setting now, even if they don't think they are, in a way. Mostly because everyone's consuming something from some sort of a cloud service, either be it M365 or Salesforce as a SaaS application or whatever. I mean, everyone's consuming something from some sort of service provider that offers it as a consumption-based model. So everyone is doing something in the hybrid space.
So you're saying, you're including, we talked about it at the last podcast, but you're including, say, Office 365 or virtual desktops as essentially the cloud, hybrid cloud on that basis.
Especially M365. I mean, Norway is Azure country. I mean, Google and AWS doesn't really have a big presence here. Microsoft does. I mean, so Norway is kind of all in on Azure for the most part. But many of those are just M365 customers, right? Because what's their alternative? Do they want to run Exchange on-prem? No, they don't. And they probably couldn't.
And GroupWise probably doesn't exist anymore, So
exactly, right. So again, aging myself, 20 years ago, we spent a lot of time installing Exchange servers all over the place. That doesn't happen anymore. You buy that as a service. You buy M365. You get Office, you get Teams, you get OneDrive, SharePoint, all of those things, and the email as well. No one is managing their own email anymore. That's a kind of a forgotten art in a way, right? So,
but is that not the same with everything? No one's managing their own CRM anymore. No one's managing their own, payroll systems anymore. They're all online. One assumes,
for the most part, yeah.
So
that's kind of what I would call kind of bread and butter services that you just purchase somewhere.
Yeah. So did the cloud evolve into SaaS on that basis? Is that where the cloud now is?
It's a big part of it, yeah.
Yeah, because even backup solutions these days buy a SaaS-based version of the backup solution. It's running in a public cloud provider, in Azure, in AWS.
Well, that's also interesting, right? Because we have a lot of customers here who uses us to provide them with backup services of the cloud services. So we do M365 backups for them.
Yep.
Either to on-prem on the customer equipment or into our data centers, right? Which is fine, which is good. It is. You need to have a backup of it. Just because it's in the cloud doesn't mean you don't have to have a backup of it. Specifically, not so.
Yes.
But the problem is, one of the things I see is if you do a backup of M365, that's fine. But if you want to restore it somewhere else, then what? You're locked into M365. You can't restore that anywhere else. You can't restore it on-prem. It's good to have a copy on-prem so you can restore it into M365 if you need to, but it's not a way of avoiding lock-in, right?
Yeah, understood. I think the reason, it's worth pointing out, the reason you back up your Office 365 environment is, again, with most cloud providers, they provide you with the facility to do it, but they specifically state that they are not responsible for backing it up. That's your responsibility. Your data is your responsibility. They just provided the platform. They don't back it up. That's up to you. So actually, and that's something that a lot of providers didn't really realize. A lot of customers didn't realize. They thought, oh, well, it's in the cloud. They'll take care of it. And the answer is no, they don't take care of your data. They only take care of the platform.
Exactly.
So they might snapshot it. Fine. Yeah. They might be able to roll it back. Fine. But if it gets corrupted, you're on your own. So yeah, it's worth knowing. But what's your take on this, Kevin?
I think it's a good point. I think now with everything what is happening in America, you see that also customers are thinking, okay, do we really want to have everything in Microsoft 365 stored? So yeah, you can also think of a way that maybe somewhat in the near future that customers would like to have everything back again on Exchange on-premise because they don't want to have everything in Exchange Online. And maybe that's an easy way of saying, okay, these mailboxes can be in the public cloud, and these mailboxes are not able to be stored in the public cloud. Yeah, so that's also, of course, a possibility. So that's why I think the hybrid cloud strategy is the good strategy to have as a company, instead of trying to push everything to the public cloud, because I don't think, not like it is now happening in America, it's a good idea.
But do you think that would really help with the lock-in effect? Because it would still be an exchange and the people would still be using Windows on their devices. The devices would still be managed by SCCM mostly or Intune. So I don't really know if that helps a lot, to be honest. And I think there should be, when we go into that direction, there should be a focus on the companies in Europe that are providing data center, that are providing private cloud, that are providing SaaS application, that are providing security. So I think it's too short-sighted to just say, okay, let's put in some Exchange on-prem. What's your take on that?
No, it depends. If you want to make sure that your data is really on a European storage, then you could say, okay, it makes sense to have an on-premise situation in place. But if you want to go without Microsoft, then it is quite difficult, of course, because then you still have Windows servers, Exchange, and that kind of things. So I think it depends what the starting point of the conversation is. Is it on you want to make sure that your data is really somewhere in your local country? Then it can be a relevant situation where customers would like to move back to Exchange on premise. But if you want to go without Microsoft, then it is quite difficult, I guess.
I think where we're going to end up, and this is something that I've seen a lot of discussions on lately as well, is the whole political climate, if you will, right, with the US and NATO and Europe and everywhere. I mean, all the hyperscalers have their data centers in Europe as well, but if the US kind of unilaterally, by doing an executive order while we sleep, tell everyone we're going to have all your data, the American companies pretty much can't withstand that and can't push back on it because of the Cloud Act and Patriot Act and everything, right? So perhaps where we're moving is basically that a lot of customers who want to ensure that their data is local, they have to first figure out which data is worth protecting in that way.
Exactly. So that's one of the things.
That might not be your emails. I mean, that might not be the most sensitive thing. Emails flow around the internet anyway when you send them, so it's kind of okay. But if you're doing research, if you're doing kind of important data in your cloud, you might look into, okay, perhaps we should move the data processing and management of that data back to on-prem and continue using the M365 SaaS services for communication and stuff like that. But keep your data, important data close, and your not so important data somewhere else, perhaps. And that ties back to the whole hybrid cloud kind of deployment model as well. It's the only real way forward for most customers. You're going to end up in a hybrid state of some kind anyway. But I think there's a lot of discussion now around which data should reside where, and do we trust this data with the hyperscaler? And those discussions are interesting. Those are really interesting because we don't know where that's going. And we don't really have any local kind of good alternatives in many places either, right? So
what about what's your thoughts on Microsoft splitting up? Because that would be an easy solution.
Yeah,
right?
that would be, and because they're already doing it in China.
European company,
exactly.
everything. They have everything basically already in Europe.
Yeah.
So
I think eventually Microsoft is also not stupid. They are quite smart as well. So I think eventually Microsoft will come with a solution as well, because they don't want to lose their business in Europe.
Exactly.
It's not going to happen. But of course, it's good for companies to have some kind of emergency exit strategy. If things will go like this, okay, how can we make sure that our data is protected? So I think it's more about those things. Make sure that you have some kind of an exit strategy, but I think Microsoft will not let it go that far that it needs to be done.
I think the difficulty here, and this is from a business perspective, the difficulty is we've actually got, or businesses have got quite used to relying on specific key vendors, and those specific key vendors, certainly over the last year, have kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit. Broadcom with regard to VMware in particular, the CloudStrike with regard to antivirus, and now then essentially this stuff with regard to Microsoft. And we have a lot of dependency on these individual elements. So are we getting to the stage whereby all of these businesses that have essentially just sort of said, "Oh, we'll just contract that out. We'll just contract that job out to these external people." Are they now going to have to think about bringing those things back in again? Are they going to have larger IT departments to run their more internal systems? Are we going to be backing up to, I don't know, cloud-based providers that are based in America? Or is that we now realize we're giving them their data, giving them our data, our important data, that could essentially be a bad thing? Up until this point, it's been a very positive thing. So it's a really difficult situation for the customer.
And there's one big kind of differentiating thing there as well. I mean, Broadcom buying VMware is kind of a private company buying another private company. The political whims of someone in charge in the US might change how Microsoft do their business without Microsoft actually being involved in that decision at all. Right. So it's kind of hard to blame Microsoft or AWS or Google.
Oh, yeah. It's not anybody's fault.
That politically might change overnight. And if there's something businesses like, it's predictability, right?
Yeah.
Looking at the stock market in the US right now, you might look at it as it not being too stable, right?
Yeah.
So
no kidding.
That's kind of the same thing
for the next weeks. So.
Yeah, that's the same thing that applies here as well.
I was going to say, we're not giving investment advice, but buy now.
No. But the thing is, you never know when it's going to change. So starting now to look at your estate and thinking about what might be a possible exit strategy if push comes to shove, that's high time to start doing that. It's a high time for IT and infrastructure and data management and everything to have a hard look at what do we do if something changes. Because I think many customers have been focused on how do we move things over, how do we start using these new services. They haven't given too much thought about what do we do if you can't use them anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I think as well. And I think it should be a good wake-up call that we are relying too much on, for instance, Microsoft or different American suppliers, that we need to make sure that, is that the good thing to do? Is that the smart thing to do? So I hope it is a wake-up call, not only for European countries, but also for businesses and other companies. Yeah, okay, is it a good solution like this?
Absolutely. And Christian's got a new Mac as well, everybody, just to let you know. So Apple is in there as well. Just nice to know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But and this is the thing. But that sort of puts a completely different pressure on our customers, because businesses up until this point really don't have been, like you say, trying to consolidate all that information to try and make it cheaper. And now They're almost in a situation where they've got to reverse that strategy. And we've done that a lot over the last 20 years anyway. But it just seems like it's another one of those points.
But always remember the number of people being aware of how to create infrastructure that is running in a local environment is getting less and less. We see a lot of young applicants, they only know cloud. They don't have any clue about patching a server or putting that into a rack or something like that. So that will be absolutely a hard challenge for the next years, I think. That's crazy.
Yeah, I was at the Conoa Cloud Day in Stockholm last week, right? So there are 500 attendees, a lot of good sessions, great stuff. I was in a few of those sessions, and everything they talk about is basically containers and Kubernetes, right? But what has Kubernetes and containers done? It's basically removed any inkling on what the actual underlying infrastructure is and how you design it. You just declare what you want, and that's what you get. You have no idea how that actually works underneath it. While I'm coming from the other side of this, and I don't understand all of the Kubernetes things. Don't make that assumption. But I'm coming from this from the infrastructure side. They're coming at it from a services side, and there's a gap between there that is. Someone needs to fill that gap, because you need to translate the Kubernetes kind of way of, let's say, declaratively select something or choose something into actual physical hardware. And that's what Christian mentioned, right? How many people do actually know how many IOPS you can get out from a storage box, or how does that thing work?
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
been abstracted away.
So, and to a certain extent, we've had that a little bit in the past. Previously, there would be a large amount of time and energy invested in figuring out how fast your storage needed to be from a response time perspective, or whether low response time, high capacity storage would do the job. Now, SSDs sort of took that problem away a little bit, especially with the size of the SSDs. But my guess is that still, from a processing perspective, and from a networking perspective, and from a storage throughput perspective, those problems still exist. They just exist at a much higher level than maybe we used to look at back in the day when we were sizing storage arrays. So, and you look at NVIDIA and things of that nature, designing entire server architectures simply for throughput. But maybe, like you say, there's a gap there between those two, whereby the guys who are running the containers, they're just interested in their code. They're not necessarily thinking about how do I optimize that to get the very best out of the underlying performance of the hardware.
And that's the
they
same.
don't have to normally.
Yeah, that's the same with cloud as well, right? If you create
No
a
idea what the
VM in
underlying
Azure,
hardware is, yeah.
you can select which kind of storage you want based on price and performance, but you don't know what the underlying thing is. So everything gets pushed into this kind of t-shirt size, this fits thing. While probably a good thing in 90% of the cases, but in other cases, you need that kind of bespoke on-prem tailored solution that works for that specific application. And if we lose that kind of technical chops, technical ability, because we have abstracted everything away, we've lost something. So,
but I think there's some good things compared to like 20 years ago. I think when you take a look at all the open source parts, we have now virtualization solutions which are running in very, very large environments, completely open source, completely manageable. We have a gazillion of Linux derivatives and distributions who can be tailored to whatever you need. We have open source Office solutions. I think there's a bright future if we put the energy in that. But still, then there's the glue that is missing between all of those. And I think that is what makes especially Microsoft so outstanding. They combine everything, and that makes it so user-friendly.
it makes
Really interested to see how we get that done.
it makes it a lot easier to consume, and that's the thing. So, but it's interesting. Like everything in the current political climate that we're in as well, it's
true,
let's just say it's interesting. It's kind of hard to predict anything at all right now.
No, exactly. It is very. I think it's massively unpredictable. It depends on what he wants to poke his stick out next. But I suppose what we are saying again is this goes back to this whole concept of hybrid cloud. The fact that there are always situations whereby if you want a scalable infrastructure that you can immediately utilize and be able to program within, and away you go, bang, public cloud is there. But if you have a specific application that requires specific performance and specific throughput, you may have to buy the hardware and install it in a data center and use it that way. But like you say, we do still, from an IT guy perspective, you still kind of know you need people who know lots of different things, not just one set of things at the moment. And I think that's probably something that many businesses are actually thinking about. So maybe Christian and I come out of retirement and start building servers again. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe. Well, what's your thought, Kevin?
No, I completely agree. If you see in the universities how the names are actually the names of these studies are just the cloud, for instance. It's nothing to do with anymore with on premises, so that's difficult. But I think the universities are also seeing this thing, so maybe they will change their studies as well more to a hybrid kind of situation. But I think that knowledge will be getting less and less in the nearby future. Yeah, and I think it will be getting more relevant. So that will shift again, I guess.
It's true, though, isn't it? Because up until, let's say, this time last year, this is how quickly this stuff's moving, we were saying we can't get enough cloud guys. We need more cloud guys. Why are they not teaching people how to use the clouds? And lo and behold, we're now going, okay, a year later, maybe we need a bit of both, because, it's not quite so straightforward. But, I don't know.
It's like the perfect consulting answer, right?
It depends.
Yeah, we'll
nailed
end
this
up,
for years.
Me and you, Tony, will end up like those gray beards back in the corner who still does COBOL for mainframe.
I just wanted to say you should open a shop, call it Hardware COBOL Consultancy, and then you're done.
Surely VBA and COBOL Consultancy. I mean, come on. Yeah, it's fine. I haven't got to PowerShell yet. I really have, but it's fine.
that would hurt.
It's not a proper programming language. But yeah, no, and this is it. So I suppose, but going back to the original question, has the cloud hit a steady state? And the answer is, I think it probably had, but then Donald Trump got into power. Is that more or less what we're saying, or is that a bit too aggressive?
Well, maybe a bit too aggressive, because like you already said, if you see how Microsoft is increasing their prices, how VMware is increasing their prices. So I think this is, of course, something which is going on for the last couple of years. But I think, with everything happening in the US, it is evolving even quicker. And so I think it is always the case in the last years. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the current uncertainty does kind of speed up the discussions around how do we see this in 5 years? How do we see this in 2 years? Or how do we see it next week? We need to think about what we're doing and have a let's call it informed decision based on what we think is going to happen and act accordingly. I don't think that next week we're not going to be using Azure or M365 anymore, and not at all.
It's virtually impossible, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, the writing is kind of on the wall that we need to take into account these things as well, these political aspects of everything and the world order and how the world works now kind of also influences how we consume IT, which pretty much hasn't been the case until now. Especially not for us. I mean, we're not going to use Alibaba and the Chinese clouds. That was kind of a given. Now we kind of need to start looking at, are we going to do this with the Americans as well?
Is there any alternative, though? I mean, we're getting maybe slightly off topic. We were talking about public cloud, but now we're down to whether there is any option other than to use Microsoft's. We could use Google. It's another American corporation. We could use OpenOffice. I mean, that's just essentially an application. It's not actually got anything like the sort of cloud level
I think it
workloads
really
and
depends.
security.
I think from the infrastructure, like that should be doable. There are alternatives. We have a data center which can be used for infrastructure that is needed, how it paid, and so on. You don't have to do it in your own basement. But when we come to the application side, there we have the problem. For example, in Germany, there's the Schwarz group, which is the owner of Lidl and Kaufland and stuff like that. Basically, the richest German is heading that company. They are actively creating a cloud infrastructure company, and they are pretty successful. So infrastructure-wise, I don't think we have that large of a problem. We just have to have to deploy it. For everyone listening, there were air quotes. But as soon as we come to the application side, there we are lacking it. There we're just behind our expectations that we now have as employees, as normal consumers. That will be very, very hard.
Yeah. And this is Microsoft's magic bullet. And I think that at the end of the day, they did. And I complimented them on the last podcast, and I still think it's fantastic. The Microsoft essentially managed to combine everything to do with modern workspace into sort of a single suite of applications. But more importantly, what they did was they more or less said, well, okay, you are a business with 3,000 employees. All of your employees need to use Microsoft Office because it's ubiquitous. Everybody has to use it. And the reason they have to use it is because everyone wants Word documents, wants Excel spreadsheets, wants maybe PowerPoint presentations, wants anything that Microsoft provides. It is the standard for normal work. Now, so on that, but then what they did was they then built that into, oh, well, if we sell you this product, which we know you need, we'll give you cloud for free as part of your licensing model. You don't have to use it. It's fine. It's up to you. But it's a no-brainer to use it. So everybody does. So essentially they pulled, not even kicking and screaming, they pulled everybody into their cloud environment and used that as a way of developing that cloud environment, which has really been hugely successful. So nobody else is in a position to be able to offer anything like that. You know, do businesses have any other option?
No, I don't think so. I think it's the only reliable solution there is in the market. And it is, it's the standard, of course. I don't see any company without a Word document or without an Excel document. Yeah,
exactly.
It's too difficult, of course. Yeah,
yeah, and this is it. And so I think it's one of those things whereby it's very difficult for businesses to actually defend themselves against this sort of thing, because you know this is being managed extremely well by very clever people who know exactly what they're doing in this situation. So yeah, it's very difficult.
Yeah, I think that's the uncertainty that we are in right now. We have to somehow handle it. And I think what Kevin said in the beginning, think about it. Think about what is your important data, what is not that important, and then you can make that informed decision that, as Christian said, where to go from here. And maybe your decision is, hey, it doesn't really matter because I'm just cleaning streets and I don't know if my mail is being seen by somebody. I don't really care. That is fine. That is okay. That's an informed decision then, because you're maybe not relying on that data as much. If you are doing intellectual property design things that shouldn't be seen by the US or Chinese people, then maybe you should have made that thought in the beginning anyway. And if not, now is the time for it.
Yeah, individual risk assessments, basically.
Yeah, based upon the workloads that you're thinking of.
Yeah, or the process you have as a company. Make sure that some processes are in the public cloud, some processes are not in the public cloud, but it is something you need to have done 2 years ago as well. So I think that's it. Yeah.
So first invent a time machine, then go back and then do it. That's what we're saying.
Just don't put the blueprints for the time machine on Azure.
Okay, good. Might help. No, maybe somebody else did, and that's how you got the time machine. Who knows?
Exactly.
I suppose the challenge there, though, is, but again, what we're saying is, from a business perspective, you need to look at individual workloads. You need to treat your data in a somewhat different way, in a more curated way, to use a word you used earlier, Christian. Yeah. To actually isolate the individual pockets of your data and say, well, fine, my website is everything I intend to sell. That can be in the public cloud, no problem. But my development stuff always stays in-house and always and doesn't get emailed. Things of that nature.
We have local customers here who do exactly that. Their designs and production is on-prem. Everything else is in Azure.
Yeah, or again, you don't have to do it on your own. There are multiple companies in Europe that help you with hosting the data up to the highest security standards,
including ourselves. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, yes, let's not forget ourselves in this particular situation. Yes, independent, European-based service provider. Yes, thank you. In air quotes for anybody who's listening. So yeah, be a gentleman. Yeah, but this is it. So I suppose. Okay, let's end on a positive note, though. Let's assume for the moment that obviously there's a lot of stuff going on with regard to the way that America is working, but which is not necessarily their fault. But the point being, really, though, that from a business perspective, it's never been easier to be able to decide exactly how you need to position your data. And just as Kevin mentioned earlier, with regard to the user utilizing a private cloud is probably the ideal way to go, because it means that if you need performance, you've got performance. If you need scalability, you've got scalability. If you need cost control, you've got cost control. All of these elements are fully available to you. And by utilizing lots of resources that you already have in public cloud environments with regard to modern workspace, you can power your employees to help move that forward. So really, it's sort of like a perfect time for creating IT systems on that basis. Yeah?
I agree. Yeah.
Okay, don't just leave it there, guys. Come on. Let's have something else. I spent ages on that speech. But this is it. I think at the end of the day, I think that up until this point, we've had situations whereby you had to buy your own hardware, you had to buy your own infrastructure, you had to buy staff, you had to buy all of these things to be able to make it work. And it's less the case these days. I mean, I'm certainly, from the limited amount that I know about managing desktops in the cloud, it's not the world's most complicated and onerous task. It's actually quite a straightforward interface to use. No questions, Christian Bone. It's not moved on from when it was previously. But that's the thing. It's easier and easier for businesses to do this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, managing desktops back in the day was interesting. So
yeah, exactly. Managing servers.
The less we can do of that physical management of physical endpoints, the better it is. The only thing worse than that is managing printers. So, yeah.
And that's still bad.
Did anyone ask the sneaker companies how they feel about that? Not running admins?
Yeah. SneakerNet is obsolete. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I think we probably call it there. So I think what I was going to say, I suppose, really, Kevin, thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. We've really appreciated you having you in, and it's been a fascinating discussion. It went off at a completely different tangent than I thought we were expecting, but that is the nature of the game. But thank you very much for your time. It's much appreciated.
All right. Thank you.